Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are to look at the Null Factor Law. Let's refer to the equation we have. On the right side, we should clearly see that there is a 0. So this is very important because on the left, you have two factors and their product equals to 0. At least one of the factors inside that gives you a 0 and their product will be 0. So we are to separate the factors we have. So let's separate them. You have x plus 2, and then you have x minus 3. And let's equate each factor to 0. And you're required to solve. So x1 minus both sides by 2, you should get your x1 as minus 2, while your x2, you are to plus both sides by 3. That should give you 3. So this is simple. So what makes the product equal to 0 could either be minus 2 and 3. So x is an element of minus 2 or 3. Moving on. So on the right hand side, you see there is a 0 again. So on the left, you see there are two factors together. So you can apply the Null Factor Law where you equate each factor equal to 0. So in this case, you have two factors. They are x and 2x minus 4 equates each factor to 0. And solve for x. So I believe your x1 is straightforward. That is a 0. On the other side, you have your 2x2 plus 4 on both sides. That should give you 4. And divide both sides by 2. And your x2 should give you 2. And now we are to put the two solutions we have together, 0 and 2. So x is an element of 0 and 2. Moving on, let's look at this question where your right-hand side is a 0, whereas your left-hand side is in its expanded form. It's not yet factorized, so the first step is to factorize that and then to apply the Null Factor Law. Let's first determine A, B, and C, and we are to create a box that the product of two numbers will give you AC, in this case 1 times minus 6. So I believe this should be minus 6. And the sum of two numbers should give you B, in this case minus 1. So let's look at the product first. So the product of two numbers is a negative number. So the two numbers are of different sign. And let's look at the sum. The two numbers that are of different sign added together, that gives you minus 1. It tells us that the magnitude of the negative number is greater. So you should get a combination as minus 3 and minus 2. And I believe the product actually gives you minus 6, while the sum gives you minus 1. We are now to break the linear term apart. So b is minus 1. We are to break minus 1 into the two numbers you found. So minus 3 and minus 2. Attach x to each number. And copy the x squared and minus 6 equal to 0 down. We are now to apply grouping method where you group two terms in a pair. Always remember, when there is a minus sign attached to your second pair, include the minus sign inside the parentheses, and in between the two parentheses, you put a plus sign. And now we should factorize the highest common factor inside each parenthesis. So the first parenthesis, you should have x as your highest common factor, and that should leave you x minus 3, plus sign, don't forget. Let's look at the second pair. You can factorize a minus 2. Always factorize the minus sign to make x just x, not minus x. and then x minus 3 will be left over and equal to 0. Looking at the left, I believe you have x minus 3 in common, both terms, so we can factorize x minus 3. And in another parenthesis, you should put x minus 2, and don't forget the plus sign, is equal to 0. If you see this plus minus, you can change it to minus, and you now successfully factorize the left-hand side. We are now to apply Null Factor Law. So the product of factors is equal to 0. We are to break down each factor and equate each factor to 0. So these are the two factors you have, and if we equate each factor equal to 0, and you are to solve for your respective x. So the first, you plot 3 on both sides, get your x1 as 3. On the right, plus 2 on both sides gives your x2 as 2. So rearrange the two x solutions you get. You should get x is an element of 3 and 2. Moving on to the last question we have. So is unfactorized form equal to 0? We are trying to factorize the left-hand side and apply the Null Factor Law. Let's first determine a, b, and c. So a is 2, b is minus 7, and c is 3. We should create a box. And now we are to look at the first line. The product of two numbers is equal to a times c. So 2 times 3. And this should give you 6. And the second line, sum of two numbers should give you b. So b is minus 7. Think of a combination that satisfies this condition. Let's look at the first line. The product of two numbers is a positive number, so that tells us that the two numbers are of the same sign, while the sum is a negative number, so the two numbers of the same sign should be negative. So think of a combination satisfy this condition. So I believe you should get minus 1 and minus 6. And we are to use the two numbers we found and break the minus 7 b apart. You should have minus 1 and minus 6. Attach x on each number and copy everything else back. 2x squared and plus 3 equal to 0. We should now apply grouping method. We are to group two terms in a pair and include the minus sign to a second pair and put a plus sign in between the two pairs you have. Let's factorize the highest common factor in each pair. So the first pair, I believe you can factorize x. That should leave you 2x minus 1. Plus sign remain as plus sign. The second pair, I believe you can factorize a minus 3. Always factor out the minus sign attached to your first x, and I believe you should get 2x minus 1. And let's bring down the equal sign and the 0. Let's look at the left. I believe we can factorize the 2x minus 1 in common. So 2x minus 1. And inside another parenthesis, you can put x minus 3. And don't forget the plus sign. And let's look at plus minus. We ultimately get you minus. And now you have successfully factorized the left-hand side. And we are to apply the Null Factor Law to solve for x. We should now look at the Null Factor Law. On the right, you have 0, while on the left, you have the product of two factors that equals to 0. So we are to break the two factors apart. So 2x minus 1 and x minus 3. And since their product equals to 0, we are to equate each factor to 0. So let's solve for the two x values we have. So I believe your first x value should be half, while the second, you should get 3. Let's put together the values we found. X is an element of half and 3. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe.